Hey guys, welcome to my podcast. Let's have a real talk. Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast. Today we have my good friend Abram Gomez. He is our guest speaker today, and I'm excited for him to be sharing his story with you all.
Hey guys, my name is Abram Gomez. I live in California in the US. I like playing video games and skateboarding. I'm here to talk today about an experience that I think a lot of people go through that is really common in our culture, which really sucks, but I believe it is an important issue that needs to be addressed. My talk will be centered on my struggles of my parents' divorce and my father's abuse. The reason I'm here to share with you guys today is because I feel like I can use what I've gone through to impact others to better themselves going forward in the future.
Thanks, Abram, and welcome. I'm really excited to hear what he has to say today, so let's get into it.
My story goes like this. So my parents have never really been in a very good relationship, and my father's always been kind of out of the picture in a way. I've seen it through when I was young, when we moved to a different state, and then another state, and then when we came back. My parents separated, and then they got back together, and then they got divorced. And so what led up to that was my dad never really did much of anything. He was always involved in things that were for himself. He wanted my brother and my sister and me to just basically do everything for him, as well as my mom, technically. He never really had a job, so he's always using the family's money, so we were always poor back when he was around because we just couldn't afford anything because it was always spent on food that he wanted specifically for himself, not for anybody else, though. And so it was interesting because he in a way was kind of manipulative because the way he got me to do things specifically for him was basically saying, well, I don't trust the rest of your siblings to do things, so instead I'm going to have you do it. But I'm going to take credit for it because I don't do anything around the house, so I'll make myself look good while you do everything for me. And that's always a drag because it was more like he was just using us for something instead of being like, okay, I'm your father, this is what I'm doing, but this is what you can do to help. Honestly, if I think about it now, my dad never really cared about anybody in the family besides himself because he was never really trying to do anything that wasn't for his own personal gain. It was more like he was trying to help himself to something that was given to him, but also like now he's gonna do what he wants without really considering how other people feel. And that's always rough because after all of this, after my parents divorced and stuff, I never really talked to him after that. And it never really was like, well, we're not really allowed to because of a few other things, like a restraining order my mom put in. But after that, I could have. But I tried to reach out and stuff. Told me a few things. And it turned out he never actually really cared to begin with because he got childcare stuff for the state, and he was like, nope, don't know those people. They don't exist. And it's like, wow, you're a really great father, and yet you get all this stuff, and it's just, wow, alright. So, my dad basically denied that me, my brother, and my sister were his kids in order to not pay for child support, which is ironic because he gets military pay from the government, and he lives in a state that allows him to live pretty much really cheaply. And it's just a bummer because it shows how he wasn't really there when he was there, and he was more just kind of on the sidelines, observing in a way that a father shouldn't, because I feel like a father should be assertive in a family and help provide for the family and basically teach the sons of the family what it's like to be a father so you can go on, which my dad never really did, which was a bummer because he definitely had potential there, but it all came down to him trying and never really tried. It's a shame. So the way it affected me is that I didn't have that father figure in my life, which sucked a lot, as well as it puts you in this mindset where you're like, okay, well, what did I do wrong? What could have I have done to make him stay? Or why did he do this and why am I here now? And it's just really tough because you're like, okay, well, now I don't have a father and he's out of my life. And in a way, it's like, well, now I feel like maybe in the future, but if nothing changes, then why would I still pursue that relationship? And it just really sucks, especially if you ever do get close to your father and then you realize that your father just isn't that great of a person to begin with, as well as much as you thought he was, which for me was the case because I thought he was a really good guy for the longest time. I thought he was great and everything. It turned out he cheated on my mom several times, which I wasn't aware of until later, which was a bit of a bummer because they were always arguing about something. I was always stuck up at night, not hearing all of their arguments, but not really knowing what it was about. Um, and it was just really hard because it was like, okay, now I'm not I'm not able to connect with that person who I thought was there because back in school I wasn't really popular. So he was more of a friend than he was a father, which was really nice because I never really had any friends. And it was a drag because it turned out that he never really cared in any situation and it was more or less just him being him, I guess. That's the only way I could put it. And it's just a shame because I wish he would have been more prevalent in my life, which he wasn't, and it's just this struggle where you're like, okay, well, I'm trying to get through this for my own health because this person isn't going to change. So how can I change myself going forward? And it's definitely a lot harder, I've noticed. I mean, I can't personally put on a specific thing that exactly affected me in a way because my mind won't let me, which sucks, but I'm still glad that I've been able to get through what I have and where I'm going today. So I think the way I got over it, in a way, I mean, still haven't fully gotten over it. A lot of my friends have told me that it shows up a lot in my life, which I'm not really sure about, but anyways, it's more or less realizing that you can't change a person, and instead of trying to change that person, you can change yourself going forward instead, because it ultimately comes down to those person's choices instead of your choices, because at the end of the day, the only thing that impacts your life is the way you go through it, instead of the way said person does. In this situation, it's my dad. I can't be like, well, he should do this or he should do that, because that's not up to me. While it sucks, I can't be like, well, hey, you should do this. Well, he's not going to listen, so then the way to go through it is be like, okay, well, if they're not going to listen, then I'm going to choose to be better than that. And I'm going to choose to be like, okay, well, this is the way they acted, and this is how I can go forward. And be like, well, they were sucky, they sucked, but now I can take that information and be like, that's not how I should act, and that's not how I should live my life. And instead, I should live my life above that and be like, okay, now I'm focused on getting through that, but also not being that, because I think a lot of times our parents can definitely influence a lot of the ways we decide who we are in the future, just in general, because they're always there, and we, as people who've gone through that, need to know we have control of our lives. They're not always there, but they don't have to be there. We can always go forward from that, because as humans, I believe we can adapt to every situation we go through, no matter what. Even though it might be hard and it might be tough and the struggle might be long, I feel like there's a lot of benefit in knowing that we can move past everything that's gone in our lives.
Thanks for sharing, Abram. Guess what time it is?
Muffin time.
No, time for follow-up question. What do you feel was a defining moment in finding out that your dad wasn't who you thought he was?
I would say it was after the second time he went to the hospital for mental health reasons. And after he got out, he was kind of just not really there, and he kind of acted like it wasn't that big of an issue at all, which kind of clued in that he wasn't really caring what was going on. He was just trying to be him, I guess.
How did your parents' divorce impact your relationship with your mom?
It was the way I think it impacted the most is that we were never really close after that. There's not like a super solid relationship. I mean, it's not a bad relationship, it's just there's not really a meaningful connection there anymore.
How old were you when your dad left?
13.
How long has it been since you've last seen your dad?
6 years since I haven't seen him, and it's been almost 3 years since I've talked to him, actually.
Okay. How has that impacted your mental health? Does it make you feel alone at all?
Not particularly, it just kind of sucks because if I were to call him, he wouldn't put in the effort to call me back afterwards. And that's one of the main reasons why I just decided to stop calling him, is mainly because he never called me first. It was always me initiating everything.
What advice would you give to someone going through the same situation?
In a way, I think I would say, one, be understanding of it, because in my situation, anyways, it was a lot of stuff to do with mental health, and you just got to be understanding about where that person's at, but also realizing that you are who you are and they are who they are, and you can't really do much about that, and you just have to be willing to go with that.
How are you feeling after sharing your story?
I'm feeling alright. I think it's nice to be able to tell people about how I've been impacted by an absent father in my life and how I can help others, who possibly have had the same thing. I believe that everybody goes through things differently, but the majority of things align, so I definitely think that my story will help, for sure.
For sure, it'll probably be helpful for someone to know that they're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
To hear more powerful stories, tune in next time to Let's Have a Real Talk.